What's up everyone? Dave Dustin here again, another video for you. This one is going to be all about these two things that just showed up recently. I am so lucky to be able to add these to my collection. These are extremely rare. These might be the only copies that exist in the universe. I don't know, there might be another copy out there. I can't find any information about these anywhere. It's as if they basically don't exist. They're that extremely scarce. People in the 40s barely kept the comics, let alone these little inserts that I'm guessing that they were tucked into newspapers or something or given away as promo items. I don't know where these would have been found. Extremely rare though. It's the Fighting Brit and also Hooks Devlin Special Agent, a free comic supplement. So these just arrived recently, and I'm just going to give you an in-depth look at them. I'll tell you about them and where the stories came from, and then I'm going to zoom in and give you a close-up and go through that Daredevil Denver story and a Fighting Brit also, and show you the other stories on the back of that. But anyway, to start off with, we'll look at Hooks Devlin, a free comic supplement here. So this story, the Hooks Devlin story, is, here's the American version in color. So that story is actually from Fight Comics number 65. So here's the cover on the American edition, Fight Comics number 65. It was cover dated December 1949. This is from Fiction House, and it contains that Hooks Devlin story. So Cartoon Arts Productions that created these, which is, of course, it's a little publisher that's in Glasgow, Scotland, and they also had a lot of their work. They created a bunch themselves. They also had a bunch that was created in Ireland, and they distributed UK editions, tiny little print runs for their comics. Their comics are extremely hard to find. There's just so few of them around. So anyway, they must have got the whole Fight Comics because they had their own comic titled Fight Comics. They put the word Lil in front. So this is Lil Fight Comics from about 1950 or in 1949. Lil Fight Comics number 2. So that reuses the same cover, but it did not have the story in it. It had other stories from like other Fight Comics and whatnot. This story is actually found in, here's another Fight Comics by Cartoon Art. They put the word big in front of it. Big Fight Comics number 2. I'm not sure if there's a number 1 of each of these. There's none pictured on the Grand Comic Database, but it has Big Fight Comics number 2 and Little Fight Comics number 2. This is dated 1949 also, Cartoon Art Productions. So that's where this story came from. And also on the inside back cover is a story called Jungle Jinx. It might have been from an issue of Super Duper. And then when you look on the outside back cover, it's got this story, Professor Atom. So that story on the back cover is actually from Super Duper number 8, which is from 1948. It's dated, I have it right here. So there is Super Duper number 8. And on the inside of the back cover, we have the same Professor Atom story that's on this Hooks Devlin here. So there's the story. On the other side, there's Pete the Prospector. You can see Super Duper number 8, Annual Bumper Edition 1948, England, 1 shilling. Number 7 also had a 1948 date at the top. Number 9 does not have a date at the top. So the Professor Atom that's on the back cover came from that, 1948. Now this book, it was meant to be like 8 pages, including the front and back cover. So here's something that's really interesting. I didn't know what was going on when this arrived because I had no idea that this was attached or that it was like folded out like a poster. I just thought it was a book. I thought it had other stories in it. I didn't even know how thick it was. No idea. I had no idea about any of this. So basically, this here, it's a printing defect. This book, you cannot open the pages properly. You should just be able to open it as if it's like 2 pieces of paper folded over each other. But the top is still connected. They were supposed to trim across the top so that the pages would be disconnected, but they did not trim it. So, because it's all attached, it folds out as a poster would. But you got 2 pages that are one way, and then 2 pages upside down. You have to flip it around, and the pages are not in proper order by any means also when you open up, because you should be opening up. That's the first page, and here's the second page, third page, fourth page, fifth page, and then inside here is sixth page and seventh page, and then the eighth page is the back, and you should be able to read it. They did other books like this also. So I have here's Wacky Rodeo. This was cartoon art. They were called Transatlantic Press at the time. Same thing. It's just, you can open it up properly because they're not attached at the top, but it's just, you know, like two pieces of paper that are folded over. That's your whole comic right there. Wacky Rodeo did the same thing. Four Deuces, same thing. It's just a couple pages folded over. They had other books. Also, they had a Zipper comic, same thing. It's just two pages folded over. They put a third page over top, called it Zippy. That's up there, Zippy Comics. So basically, if this was a book, I numbered the panels. So you can see there's page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The back is 8. So when this thing's folded open, here's the order the pages are in. You got page 8 and page 1. And upside down, you have page 4 and 5. Then on the backs, you have page 2 and 7. And upside down, you have page 6 and 3. But when you fold it up, they're in the proper order. It's just the top is not trimmed off. So I got a printing defect on that one. That's kind of neat. I had never had a comic with that printing defect. I've had thousands of comics. Like probably a few thousand, I'm guessing. There's like 1,400 books in my collection right now, and I've bought and sold hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of others. I don't go looking for printing defects, which I'm sure you could find a whole bunch of them. Just look online, eBay, whatnot. But just from randomly getting books, I have never had that printing defect. And in the same package came another book, different publisher, Canadian publisher, Century Publications, Superior Comics, Conqueror's Comic. It had the same printing defect, where I was expecting that one. The seller had mentioned there was a defect. I didn't know exactly how it was going to go, but same thing. It was a bigger sheet of paper though, so it had 2 pages attached, and then 2 pages attached within them, and then another 4 pages, same thing, so that there was 8 pages or so you couldn't open inside that book, and it would have been like a big poster of pages if you were to take the staple out and remove that page that didn't get the top trimmed off. So the pages are still connected at the top like this one. And I got 2 of them now. I've never seen them before. I had none of them like that. So that's interesting. I think I do a video on printing defects, probably in the near future. So I got some other weird stuff too. Some other extremely rare defects that you don't really see that often. Anyway, we'll get to the Fighting Brit also now. So it's got the text story 2-Bit Sheriff by John Thaden, and that takes up, it's all across the front, all across the back. Big, huge, long story. It's a big poster that you'll see all open up, front and back, a broadsheet. And it has inside it, on the other side, Larry the Lab Boy. So Larry the Lab Boy is actually in Super Duper number 8 that I had just showed you. It's also in that, so it's also 1948, dated on the cover. So there's Larry the Lab Boy. So this is on the back of the Fighting Brit. And then also on the back of the Fighting Brit, it has, to be able to date it better, it has Super Duper Youngsters in the News, and it's got the Super Duper Crossword number 5. And those that are on the back of the Fighting Brit are printed on the inside back page right here. Super Duper Youngsters in the News, Crossword number 5. And that's on the inside and back cover of Super Duper number 9. It's probably also 1948. There's no date on the cover. This number 8 and number 7 are also 1948. So this is probably 1948. Super Duper number 9. So that's how we can date that. And then it's also got a really cool Daredevil Denver story. So there's Daredevil Denver. So this is in all the Super Duper comics, original British comic strips. This Daredevil Denver I have not seen. It's not in number 8, 9, or 10. That's for sure. It's maybe 7, maybe 6, maybe 5. I don't have those ones. It's an earlier edition though. But this is actually a marijuana drug story from the 1940s, which is really crazy because there's only very few stories in the comics back then about drugs in the 1940s. And this isn't even an American comic. This is a British comic, but it's stylized after American comics. That's what they did over there. The Cartoon Art Productions with the Super Duper comics, especially all the stuff by Dennis Malcolm Reeder. It's a lot of American style comics. Really, really cool stuff. I love all his work. And yeah, so it's got about American drug smuggling ring that smuggles up marijuana from Mexico, it appears, and then they roll it into a bunch of joints and sell it in cartons as if they were cigarettes. So we'll go over that story too. I'll just get the camera and I'll zoom in and show you what I'm talking about. All right, so here's the Hooks Devlin. So you can see it's a poster because the tops are not cut. So there's the final page 8, Professor Adam. Beside it is page 1. Then upside down are the other pages. Upside down pages. There's Jungle Jinx. It's really neat stuff. And look at the Fighting Brit. Carefully fold this out. So here's the back. Look at the back first. It's open. So there is Super Duper Youngsters in the News. Super Duper crossword number 5. You got Larry the Lab Boy from Super Duper. There it is. Fantastic. Item here. A broadsheet of comic and adventure stories for boys of all ages 5 to 50. The Fighting Brit. All British boys paper. There's the 2-bit sheriff, the story that continues right across the whole book. So here's Daredevil Denver. So this is not in order from left to right. It is in order from right to left. See, the right is a bit higher and then it goes downward. So that's the way you read these 3 pages. I'll go over it quick. Daredevil, Denver, and Fireball, his Wonder Horse. In a punch-packed Western detective yarn, the mail-order catalog clue. Hello, that aviator seems to be having trouble. He's coming down in flames. To the rescue, Fireball. To avoid a precipice, Daredevil has to make a detour to get to the place where he judges the plane will land. It takes up time. Too late to be any use. Hello, what's this? A mail-order catalog with a name and address. Daredevil reports a disaster to the sheriff. No identification possible. Charred to a cinder. I picked this up. 3 days later, Daredevil meets the sheriff. Mighty fighty thing, Daredevil. Nobody's claiming to know anything about that plane. A stranger, huh? I'll follow up the catalog clue if you like. Mrs. S. Muller, Esquimalt Ranch, Caribou County. Sheep. It's a mighty long way. Are you fit, Fireball? There's no one about when Daredevil arrives. He gets onto the porch and he hears the sound of a Barney and some real interesting talk. Sure, the plane's overdue, but is that a reason for you to get hysteria and shriek that the dicks are onto us? Listen, you're going into town today, and I don't mean maybe. Daredevil walks in pretending to have heard nothing. Hiya, folks. How's the hospitality? What the? Oh, hello, stranger. That was swell. Have a cigarette. I smoke cigars. My wife does not smoke at all. After the meal, the cowboy leaves the Eskimo. What do you know? Neither smoke cigarettes, and here's a carton of Lucky Strike in the yard. When Mrs. Muller goes to town, I'll be on your trail. She furtively enters a real estate agent's office. Guessing that the next development will occur in the back office, Daredevil takes a chance. That's all for this time, Schultz. The plane's overdue. I'm scared. I've got a feeling. Stow it, sister. The cowboy tech makes his next play. He fires a couple of rounds into the outside air. Then he ducks for cover behind the counter. What's up? As the two rush past, he is in the back office in a flash. But he doesn't have time to fathom the secret of the cigarette carton before, up with them. You're back sooner than I expected. As Daredevil speaks, he goes into action. He throws a carton at the gunman and dives. I don't know what your game is, but it smells. No, you don't, lady. So you three beauties were dope peddling, huh? Marijuana in cigarettes. Come on, spill the setup. The truth now, and no shenanigan. Schultz talked my husband into an easy money racket. The dope came by plane from over the border. We made it into cigarettes. And here's Schultz himself, just come to in time to be carted off to jail. So that's a really neat drug story. 1948 broadsheet. And that also the 1949 Hooks Devlin supplement. A couple extremely rare items from my collection. Hope you enjoyed having a closer look at them. And next time, cheers.